Welcome, I'm Brian the Builder, and in this video, we are going to be assembling, adding LEDs, and painting this really cool model from Mezgike. I've never painted orc skin before, so this guy's got a big body chunk of orc skin. All the mechanical bits are going to be really fun, but the greens of orc skin are going to be pretty entertaining, so that should be pretty cool. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so I need to get all my pieces primed, but in order to do that, I really need to mask off all the flames. Otherwise, they won't be transparent later. So I have a micro mask from what is it, Microscale Industries, is that it? Yeah, Microscale Industries, the same guys that make Microside Microsol. So this is just basically a liquid mask that will peel off. Alright, so all the parts have been primed. It's time to peel off, hopefully, the liquid mask. Alright, with all the parts primed, it is time to drill a hole as close and as kind of a big of a cavity in there as I can get it. So, here we go. You can actually see how far in that is. So let's step up our bit size. That I just want to get all the way. Hopefully, our resistors here are getting a little big. Alright, so just a quick idea of what the LEDs look like on the inside. Alright, now this actually needs the power box part removed. So the part here that is made to take our little LED, okay, that fits inside there perfectly. So I have to replace this one with this one. So we're just gonna cut it off. Alright, so we're just hoping we're actually gonna come out through the base. Should be close, no matter what, based on the angle here. I think it should be good. We'll find out. Well, that was interesting. That got hot. It kind of exploded a little. Oh, that had to be so close to actually getting through. Well, at this point, none of the kind of break there would actually affect anything. That would super glue back together about perfectly. So, well, let's see what happens here. I don't really want to 3D print this thing again. It's a lot of resin. That came out in about exactly the best spot it could. So I glued the body back together, kinda, hopefully. It should be welded just fine. So now I'm just gonna kind of groove where the wire is gonna have to sit. So I'm just going to get the wires fed through, and then we should be able to start gluing some stuff together. Alright, so I believe this is now grooved out enough that it'll actually line up with the hole there. So let's see. I'm going to get this threaded down through. That fits on really nicely. There's still movement, so there's no pinch. And there it is. Okay, so that actually sits in there very nicely. There's still a little bit of slack and movement. Okay, so that's about perfect. I'll have room to get all the way through the base. That'll actually be hardwired to the battery and the switch. Oh yeah. Alright, so I'm just going to make the last connection here to the battery holder. And then should be able to get the switch mounted into the base. Then we'll figure out how to magnetize those faces. In general, you want to work with your soldering iron with as low of a temperature as possible and as small of a tip as possible in order to get the solder to infuse into whatever you're doing. So if you're doing something with really heavy gauge wire, you'll need a bigger tip and a higher temperature. Really tiny wire, small temperature, small tip. And obviously there's no absolutes to this stuff, but that is a good general rule to follow. Let's get some glue on there. I am gonna have to figure out some kind of mount for this thing to just keep it in the right spot so it's not lifting the base. And then, alright, so the switch works, turns the lights on. Alright, so I did a little bit of prep to figure out where the magnets are going to go, both in the neck and in the back of the heads. So those are all marked. Hopefully they're really close. I'm going to drill the holes for my 1/8 inch magnets with a 9/64 inch drill bit. So I'll have a little bit of extra space around them. I did also prep my magnets. I always want to mark one end of all of the magnets with a dot to help me make sure I keep them all in the same orientation as I'm trying to figure out what goes where. Because I'll have one that goes in the neck and then 3 that go in the heads. So one way or the other, that way I know what goes where. So now I'm going to go ahead and actually start with just a push pin to mark the center location, because it's a little easier to line that up and just kind of give myself a dent. And then with the small drill bit, and then my 1/8 inch drill bit, or I should say my 9/64 inch drill bit, is also taped so I know where to stop as far as the depth goes. Because if I drill too deep, I just have to pack more epoxy putty in to fill up the hole behind where the magnet's going to sit, because the magnets are far, far stronger when they touch each other. So you don't want the magnets embedded so that they can't get to each other. You want them, at worst, it's best to have them actually slightly proud, but you do want them to just make contact. So slightly proud's better than slightly recessed. All right, here we go. Now, in order to get them to all point the same direction, I want to need to remember that whichever I decide I can see at the neck is what I won't see on the head, right? So if I can see the black dot at the neck, on the heads, all those black dots will be on the inside. So, right, I probably want to make this the black dot so I don't see the black dot on all the heads. Doesn't really matter, I just have to remember which one's which. We have Deathguard green, Deathworld Forest, Elysian green, here's Wogflesh, those are all Citadel colors, and then back here from Vallejo, I have Mutation green, and Goblin green. So, again, not quite sure exactly how the mix is gonna go. As I mix, Wogflesh is definitely going to be a main base for just about everything, but then I'll be mixing in other things to kind of get the colors where I want as I go. But it is going to be mostly on the fly, so there won't really be a way to kind of talk about percentages and how I'm mixing. It's just going to be where it is. So hopefully I can keep on camera here well enough to shoot all of this, but we'll see. I mean, you know, front, back, all the skin parts are going to be the same, and then we'll pop the heads on and off. And I might play around with an idea of making it look like there's, you know, some kind of spinal connection in there where the heads would actually connect to. I don't know, that might be kind of fun. We'll see. Alright, so here we go with base flesh color. Alright, so before I start highlighting all of the skin and actually adding some nice variation in tone, I want to go ahead and actually do a shade and kind of start emphasizing all of that muscle structure and getting it a little darker before I start highlighting. So I'm just going to smash Peel Tan Green pretty much everywhere. So it should darken everything nicely. And add some nice shadow. And I'm going to lay it on pretty heavy. At this point, the fact that there is no other surface painted makes it so that it actually makes sense to lay this in there pretty heavily. and get a nice range of green tones. So when you're working with shades, you don't really want them to puddle anywhere, because you can end up getting some kind of tide marks where it dries. So you do want it to settle into the low spots. But just watch for the big drippy puddles that'll end up kind of working their way down to the lower parts of the model. Alright, we'll let that sit and dry for at least an hour. Probably wouldn't need to be quite that long, but as I go ahead and add the highlights, I definitely don't want it pulling up any of that shade. So we'll let it get good and dry before we move on. Alright, we'll be right back. Alright, now that the shade is nice and dry, I'm just going back with some very thin log flesh to just add a little bit of that original flesh tone back in. I'm not going to go heavy. I just want to make sure that that base color is really the most pronounced. And again, it's really thin, so it should dry really transparent. So I'm just going to go basically over the largest masses of all the muscle groups, avoiding the recesses, but I want to kind of re-establish that base color. Alright, so I have now started to mix in some of my lighter shades. And I'm going to essentially just kind of be messy and hopefully end up with something that feels like kind of, well, the inconsistencies of flesh color. So let's see. Hopefully this is going to work. If not, we'll go back and rebase coat it and start again. Well, I think as far as orc flesh goes, that looks really good. I like it kind of modelly and stipply. It definitely feels like it adds some not just texture, but actually like variation of skin tone. Not that it's necessarily completely finished. And I do still need to kind of get the faces done. But as at least a starting point into the kind of overall feel of skin, I think it's looking really cool. I do really like the idea that orcs are essentially like fungus that starts is a mass of kind of nothingness, and then somehow as they grow, they develop bones and blood and everything else. So that's kind of wild, but the idea that they start as fungus really makes it so that this skin can kind of be almost any way you want it to be, right? Fungus comes in a lot of different colors, varieties. I don't know that I would be able to necessarily add any real texture, but I don't think that's necessary. I think this looks really cool. Alright, so I don't really have an absolute plan on the... I'm gonna do the pants, legs, belts, loincloth now. And I know I'm going with browns, tans for the pants, boots, and leather, and some bluish kind of tone for the loincloth. Alright, so for me, this is a really scary part now. I am going to do the transparent colors on the flames here, and I am hopeful that it's gonna work. If not, I don't really know. I suppose if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then the light on the inside is just not quite as bright. It's not like it's a life-threatening situation here. So I'm just going to start with the transparent yellow near the bottom of the flames. And I'm not going to take it super far up, knowing that I have a clear orange and clear red from Tamiya that may not blend nicely. So we're just going to start with the yellow, kind of get it down into all the low spots. Partway up the flames. And then I'll go back with the orange and yellow and try to blend it in. Again, not sure how great it's going to look once it's lit, but it should actually be pretty cool. So let's hope. I think the flame is about as good as that's gonna get. Looks pretty cool. Once that's dry, I need to go back and add a lot of shading to like all the metallics, the base. I get a bunch of bullets to add to the base, well, bullet casings. So, it's close. It's very close. I think the flame is gonna look super cool. There's a lot of really cool little stuff on here. Oh, after using the Tamiya Hull Red on all of those oil / hydraulic fluid drips, I went back over it with the Tamiya Clear Red, and it really does look a whole lot more now like dripping hydraulic fluid. So the Hull Red coated with Clear Red, I think, did the trick. Alright, I think pretty much all the shades are looking really good. I'm just going to go into a little bit of purple right around all of the spots where we have torn flesh. I don't think it'll be super noticeably purple or anything. Might go back in with just a little bit of Carroburg Crimson also. Make it a little redder. But for the most part, Orks seem to have essentially no real problems with parts of them being ripped off or replaced with mechanical parts. So they seem to heal up, get real strong. Doesn't seem to hurt them actually. Kind of cool to be part fungus, I suppose. So I could go back over all the weld lines. For whatever reason, welds don't seem to tarnish. They stay nice and bright kind of forever. But I'm going to go into the little Necron compound, which seems like it's kind of dried up here. I might need to give it a really good shake. But I got some out of there, and I'm just going to go over and do some light dry brushing over at least the back of the gauntlet here. And it should pick up a bunch more of the detail and help a lot of those little rivets and stuff pop out. Alright, I don't want to go crazy because I don't really want this to be too shiny, but I do want it to look like a lot of the high spots have worn As I'm finishing up here and checking this guy out, I just gotta say thanks again to Mezgike for modeling this really, really cool kit. And I hope, if you're watching, I hope you really dig the LEDs.